I don't know how it can be yet another week. Shut the hell up. It's like you're so used to a cart from the old days. That's how we used to do it in the old days when we had a cart and everything like that. Just fire it off. This thing just keeps repeating like a guest at a party who won't sod off when you want them to go. Not that I give parties. Hello, everybody. I'm Russ Kane. This is The Daily Show. This is Men's Radio Station. And welcome. Welcome to everybody listening now on Deluxe Radio, which is marvelous. And about 70,000 people on Deluxe Radio alone. Hope your weekend was good. Full week ahead of you this week. Yeah, I know, but let's just take time to sip an espresso, shall we? Shall we? Shall we do that? No, let's not. You know him. You've grown to love him. He is the king of New Malden. And if there was any greater accolade, I don't know what the hell it would be. Neil Long.
Hello. Well, I've had a hell of a weekend. I've done stand-up comedy gigs. I've saw my daughter, which was excellent, and I DJ'd a restaurant on Saturday night, which was lovely.
Was she booing? Was that the person who was booing?
No, she didn't come to my comedy gigs. She has seen my comedy gigs, and no, she didn't boo. She thought it was very funny, which was good.
Okay, I always worry. Let's dash straight across to Houston in Texas, deep in the heart of morning, all. She doesn't talk like this, but for the purposes, until she comes back to the UK, she will. Morning, all. I had a stress headache this morning, so looking forward to relaxing with your wit and wisdom. Your headache's going to get one heck of a lot worse. I've been down on the south.
Tell you a story, because I do DJ lessons here, and one of my students came around, a lovely girl called Emily, and she had a headache, quite a bad headache, and she thought thumping music would make it worse, but do you know, as she focused on that, her headache completely cleared. True story.
Did it? I can't go into a shop that's playing thumping music. I'd rather not buy anything from them. I vote with my ears.
Is that
I won't.
right?
It drives me it's absolutely unnecessary. And you know you're going to get shit service. What is the correlation between thumping loud music in a shop and totally shit service?
Because they can't hear you.
They don't give a damn. That's the problem.
Is that right?
Okay. So you packed in tons.
Yes, I've
unpack it a little bit, boy. Unpack it.
Well, Thursday was a charity fundraiser. Do you remember the lady that we had on here, Esther Vinkirke? She had the vision for the dementia centre.
Oh, remember? Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, it was a fundraiser for her, and there was 10 comedians, including me, and collectively we raised 400 quid, which was nice, over in West Wickham last week.
Wow, that's good. Where was it?
Yeah.
Where was it?
A place called the Swan in West Wickham.
West Wickham.
Just over the other side of Croydon, on the way to Bromley.
Oh, is there no higher showbiz accolade than to Croydon?
Yeah. And people think Bromley is just the other side of Croydon. No,
it's not.
Isn't.
Bloody
mild. It's absolutely mild. And then what else? DJ'd a night on Saturday in a restaurant called the Opera Lounge, which was nice, and celebrated people's parties. Really important subject today, though.
I've got an important subject to say, because I happened to be, and I drove in to someone's driveway, but a certain car wasn't there because I was visiting my daughter, and I thought I'd pop in, but the car wasn't there, so I didn't ring the bell. You can ring my Buren. Hello, Russ and Neil. And would you like to read this?
From Ramsey, afternoon. Hope you had a great weekend. My kids brought me up to speed on the internet sensation that is KSI. What is that?
It's Kiss Mein Tuchus. I have no idea what the hell it is.
Of course it is. It is.
It would be that. Right. Over to you, Mr.
Very important subject today. I saw a post on LinkedIn and it really caught my attention. I think what we're going to talk about today is probably almost the whole ethos of Men's Radio Station. And we are talking suicide prevention.
Ooh, that's why I went to Howard and said, let's do this together.
A very, very poignant subject, obviously, and a poignant post on LinkedIn. Now, we have had this man's lovely partner on the show before, talking about her books, Bulimia Sucks and Anxiety Hacks. That was Kate Hudson Hall. And together with her partner, Alan Piper, together they are Wise Blue Owl They're both therapists, qualified therapists, qualified in loads of different disciplines, some mainstream, some a little more alternative, like your NLPs and your EFTs and your
Hang on,
hypnosis.
stop. NLPs we've learnt, neuro-linguistic programming. ELT, wasn't that electric light?
EFT, emotional freedom technique, the tapping.
What? Oh, the tapping stuff.
Tapping.
Okay.
EFT, and all sorts of good stuff. So really just wanted to invite Alan on because I think it seems quite timely. I sense almost the urgency behind
Somebody's
this post.
rustling away there like a good one.
But it's not me.
Go on. No, it's not you. It must be Mr.
Alan, good
Wise
afternoon.
Blue rustling
Good
noise.
afternoon there. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello there. You look like you're in a call centre with that. It's very professional.
Sorry about that. That's
Either that, you're going to call down a 747 where the pilot's eating the fish and should have eaten the chicken. One of those.
This
See
is
the
my...
red button in front of you. Do you see the red button? Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Yep. I've got loads of them. Yep. No, I'm in the therapy centre here. So is that a reasonable picture there? Or...
It's okay. There's quite a lot of rustling going on there. I don't know what's rustling, but if you
that's my therapy chair. My nice relaxing.
Well, it's making one hell of a noise, mister. That's all I've got to say.
Shall we? I'll tell you what. Can you pull your mic out and put it back in again? Because it's a little bit rustly.
Really annoying.
Okay. I'm going to take you out for just 1 second, and I'll put you back.
Wise Blue Howl, I'm going to call it.
We'll let Alan sort that out. And
I'm in
pop him
full
back in.
day sleep. Hello, mister. Right. Okay.
Can you hear us, Alan?
Oh, that's working well. Right. No, Alan's going to go.
I don't know if you can hear us, but we can't hear you.
No, we can't hear anything. Ramsey says, so many new charities now addressing men's suicide. Yeah, a bit late to the party. Have you heard of Andy's Men Club? Yes, I have. But we're always happy to have these guys on. Yeah, that sounds better. All right, we can hear you.
Betty, you're still a little bit rustly. Never mind.
All right, you plow on, Neil.
Thank you. Tell us about this post that you put on LinkedIn and the importance of it.
All right. So we're on a therapy centre here, and I think we have to.
No, I'm sorry. Whoa, no, we can't. We can't take that.
I'm really sorry. That sound is
so. The sound is so bad.
Do you have to use headphones?
No. Can I try this without them, guys?
Yes.
Yep.
I'll tell you what. We'll take you out for a couple of minutes, and we'll get you straight back. Okay. Yeah.
That's a noise. The trouble is, if you can see him, if you're watching this, you can see the picture. But if you're trying to listen on Deluxe Radio, if you're just listening on one of the apps and you're on the phone or you're in your car and you're playing it through your speakers, that is a horrible noise. So we don't want that.
We'll let Alan
as much as we want to have it.
Yes. I basically saw a post on LinkedIn, and the ethos behind the post, basically, and I was talking to Alan, doing a little bit of pre-show prep earlier on today, and the ethos behind the post is, why do men, and I did gender specify it. I said, is it more men than women?
Yes.
But why do men wait until the very last minute, wait until things are desperate before they reach out for help, if they do?
I can
hear all these stories of people putting the mask on, being absolutely fine, and then the next day they're gone. And people go, "Oh my God, he seemed so happy."
I never knew he seemed great last week.
And it's just a question of early intervention. And I want to know, certainly by the end of this hour, I want to understand more why, as men or as women, we're not keeping it exclusively to men, feel they can't reach out for help. What stops them doing that?
Let me jump in.
Why are they not?
Let me give you some context. Let me give you some background.
Yeah.
Why women's radio station started a year before men's radio station. Men's radio station started because I was doing the news review on BBC, and that day's headlines, the main story was all about suicide statistics in the United Kingdom. Could have been anything. I was shocked, not a subject I know anything about, thank God, but I was shocked to see that it was 80% men, 20% women, and I thought, geez, we've got to do something about that. So I went to my business partner, Howard, and I said, you know what? We need to have men's radio alongside women's radio. And he went, yep. So we shook over a cup of coffee and a Formica table, and we set it up. And the rest, as they say, is history. That's what it is. Why are men more successful?
Yes, that's another thing. Men tend to be more successful doing it than women.
Because, before our guest comes on, if they're going to do it, it's going to be dramatic. I'm going to be very blatant, and so just giving you a trigger warning. if you throw yourself in front of a train, right, or you do something of that nature, there's only going to be one consequence.
Yeah, there's no going
It's going to
back.
be bad. Women tend to do it more, not always, please, not always, so don't start yelling, as a cry for help, and might take pills, and hopefully they will recover. But men tend to be far more dramatic to end it.
And that is pretty accurate with
And
the
I'm
statistics.
sorry to say that. It sounds horrible, but it's what
No,
all
it's the
the
truth. You don't have
research,
to
what all the
sugarcoat it. It's
research
the truth.
shows. It's not a
Yeah.
jolly subject. Right. Let's see if we can hear you now.
Alan from wiseblueowl.co.uk. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
That is much
Perfect.
better.
That's great.
Right, brilliant.
That is
Right,
much better. Thank you for sorting that out. Well, welcome to the show. Tell us about this post. I mean, you and your lovely partner Kate are therapists.
Yeah.
You obviously see an awful lot of this in your therapy room, I would have thought. We had our little chat earlier. Obviously, we're not going to ask you to name any names. It's all completely confidential and all that sort of thing. But do feel free to use any examples that you think are relevant. Tell us about this LinkedIn post and why this means so much to you.
Before we go back to that, let's go back to Russ's point a minute ago. What we have to be sort of actually on that, the difference between maybe a behaviour more in women and men. Yeah. When we talk about self-harming with women, self-harming is due to emotional issues, and is not always something that's related to suicide. Yep.
Right.
Men with their suicide, and going back to that dramatic, is generally because they're at a point where the stresses and strains have got to that point. Does that make sense?
What I wasn't talking about, Alan, I wasn't talking about people.
It does.
Especially teenagers. I wasn't talking about teenagers cutting themselves, which is huge, and the media won't really look at it because the media knows it plays its part in it, especially social media. I'm talking about if a woman, not a girl, if a woman takes a load of sleeping pills or something horrible, and that is her suicide attempt. So just being specific here.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, while we started it, and let's just say why I put that post out on LinkedIn, and this is the interesting factor. The one on LinkedIn got more interest. You guys are in the same sort of area of Surrey as I am, and I went out a couple of times.
I am. Russ is not, but
nowhere near Surrey.
Okay, well, I put out some local Facebook pages on the local sites to get an interest in men's mental health. Now, the reason for this, because in the therapy centre, we know at this specific time, particularly in financial crises and where there's sort of major events going on, that people put their self to a certain degree last. They start cutting back on the therapy. They start cutting back on the help they get. The gyms, that sort of thing. Yeah, the money's tight.
The self-care.
Yeah. So I'd put out these posts basically to get some interest that I was going to donate some of my time free without going into technicalities of how the mental health business works in the UK, but I always describe it. It's the same as dentists. There are some elements available in the NHS, but the majority of people have to pay for somewhere along the line, whether it's counselling, psychotherapy, or whatever. So I put these posts out, and I got very little response. Now, we're talking about an area where I between you and me, Neil, I'm not going to try and quantify how many people live in that area. Yep, we're just talking hundreds of thousands. Yep.
Oh yeah, massive.
Yep. Three women. Yep. Now that's in comparison. If somebody wants to talk
3 women? Hang on, just to be
three
clear.
Women
responded. 3 women responded to you. That was it.
So I'm offering my services and on these posts, it was about whether it's a walk-in, whether it would do a group session, whether it's sit around and have a beer, guys. Yeah, I'm going to offer some of my time, weekly chat, weekly whatever. Yeah, let's have some ideas.
And you've made it clear, Alan, you've made it clear that you're a professional counsellor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, you weren't just, there wasn't any miscommunication that you were just
I've made it clear.
Area. It was a gardener.
Yeah, I've got the Wise Blue Owl. Yeah, you can go on the LinkedIn page, see who I am. See that.
No, I get that. I'm just trying to
So,
Contextualize.
I got 3 women liked it. Yep. Now, when I put that in contrast, and we did that a couple of times, I think second time around, I think there was 5 women liked it, 2 guys liked it. Now, I'm going to put that in contrast in that area. If somebody wants to message or put something out about a restaurant to go and eat to, or somebody wants to, recommendations for a good nail bar, it's littered, right?
Yeah. Nobody wants to talk about it, but you've put your finger on the pulse. It's not a sexy subject.
Exactly.
People don't want to talk about it, and then when it's too late, oh shit, could we talk about it? Well, it would have been nice before XYZ happened.
Now, I'll give you an example here of a client. I can't give names and
no, please don't.
Of course.
This client actually didn't come to me directly. It was a local business, and it was their mental health first aider that contacted me. Now, the guy in question, I think we say a kerfuffle with another guy at work. And they were concerned about him because they described him as he was a lovable guy. Everybody liked him. He was a good worker, friendly guy. Why was this sudden change on one day that this kerfuffle took place? And they were concerned about something a bit more serious. I had a conversation with him. They sent him round to me. And this is what's quite important. He hadn't discussed with any of his work colleagues the death recently of his sister, who he was close to. He also hadn't mentioned on a physical point that over the last few weeks, he'd been noticing blood in his poo.
Right.
He kept that to himself, which is could lead to a serious.
Absolutely.
Yeah. On top of that, in this financial crisis, he was just dealing with it. Yep. If that makes sense. The best he could, the family, the bills, and everything else, plodding on. Yeah, it all got too much for him, and just come out in this burst of this kerfuffle at work. When
you say kerfuffle, are we talking about an argument? Are we talking about a physical fight?
It got into almost a physical fight. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I think somebody intervened,
which was very out of character. You're saying, local everybody
absolutely.
liked.
Yep, absolutely. Very out of character for the guy.
And that's sometimes a good indicator, isn't it?
Yeah.
That people are really masking something. When someone does something really out of character, that's the time when people, qualified people or even friends should be saying, listen, are you all right? And on that brilliant, like in the brilliant documentary by Roman Kemp on BBC iPlayer, asked twice, no, really, are you all right? And I thought that I would.
Great point, Neil.
That recommended watching for everyone involved in mental health and everywhere. And I'll have it shown in every school in the country personally, but there you go. So I suppose there could be a blessing in this because it caught it before it was too late for him. What's the upshot here?
Right, the upshot was 2 things. Let's go back to the physical issue. He was also too frightened to go to the doctor because of consequences. Right?
Of course.
He wouldn't put. I actually sat him in. He sat here in my therapy room, and on this computer, I got him to say, "I need your doctor. We're going to write that now. I'm going to complete the form so your doctor can contact you." He's a therapist. He's going to listen to it. If that makes any sense. Your one won't be the bottom of the pile. We're going to get you that help because you need to at least get that undergoing. In terms of the emotional stuff and the mental side of it, was able to talk to him. We were talked about what was going on and the death of his sister and how that affected him and his grieving. And the also thing he pointed out, he sat in the therapy room. They'd sent him round that I'm now going to lose my job. Yep,
because of the altercation.
Because of the altercation. We're calling it the altercation. Now, anyway, cut a long story short, it's not for me to talk to his employees, even though or discuss anything, but he was open to it. I spoke to his employer. The employer had no idea. The employer's immediate reaction was, right, he needs to see the doctor. I said, well, we've got that sorted, and we need to obviously talk him through some counselling to go through some of these other issues, and we'll deal with that. And his employer immediately said, it's whatever it wants, Alan. I'll pay from it. He's one of my best guys.
Oh, bless.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Absolutely. And he sat in the therapy room there with me, and he suddenly beamed. Yep. He suddenly like, there's people going to help me. Yep. And
Can I, Alan? Let me stop you there for a second, because what you've said is such a shining example of what happens potentially. Won't happen every time, because we live in the real world.
Yeah.
Not all employers are that decent, but if you bottle all of this up, it'll never end well.
And I think
And
you hit on something else.
if you do reach out, you may very well be surprised at the help that is available.
This is it. I think a lot of men think that we're supposed to have it all together all the time and know all the answers to everything perfectly, immediately, and right now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And when we don't, because no one can live up to that. I mean, when I was dealing with my mum's dementia, it's so insidious. The greatest trick dementia, Paul, is to try and convince you it doesn't exist. So dealing with something like that,
it's hideous.
Yeah. You're not dealing with, or I wasn't dealing with known things, so I couldn't possibly know the answers. Retrospectively, I can look back, obviously, but then I couldn't. And caught in the middle of all of that, this kind of coming up, everything all at once happening, and me feeling this kind of, I don't want to use the word macho, I don't like that word, but this kind of male perfectionism to have it all together all the time. And eventually that, well, pretty quickly, that becomes very, very draining. I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but I was kind of, I didn't want to live, but I didn't want to die, but I didn't particularly want to live. I was meh. I was this big pile of meh.
If you'd have gone to sleep, I'm going to go out on a limb here, only because I've known you for many years, Neil, and I wouldn't ask anybody else unless I knew them. You didn't want to end your own life.
No.
But if you could have gone to sleep and not woken up, you wouldn't have been too fussed.
Well, again, that's sort of ending your own life. I wasn't that
bad.
But,
well, say it was out of your hands.
No, I still wouldn't go that far.
Oh, well, there you go. Then you did want to live.
I was meh. I didn't particularly want to live, but I didn't particularly want to die. Yeah.
You didn't. Well, you did. You did want to live, and you didn't want to die. So not quite as dark.
Yeah.
But we know it's also a cry for help. Yeah. But also we know with men there is this level, and it does go back to what we call self-harming when there are emotional issues. Men bottle up more than one issue. Going back to this guy, there was a number of issues that it got to a boiling point and he can't see a way out. Yep. That makes sense.
It makes complete sense.
Physical issues.
Because when you're in a situation like that, Alan, I'm sure you agree. You can't see the wood for the trees, and other people can. They can have a more objective point of view, and frankly, they can give you permission to be human and to have human feelings. Because I think men and feelings haven't been great bedfellows for many years. Hopefully, with conversations like this, we're breaking the stigma.
Long way to go.
And also, I think men have a difficulty in receiving. Your guy opened up and he was able to receive the help. You know, we all talk about giving, but it has to be balanced. We have to be able to receive as well. Otherwise, it's another sort of energy block. And the fact that your guy was able to receive is testament to the truth of what we're saying. And of course, I'm glad he's getting the help he needs.
I'd like to put this up, and I'd like Alan's view. I have to read it out because on Deluxe Radio they are listening, they're not seeing us, so they won't see any of the captions coming up. It's from Ramsey Weimer-Salm. He says, don't forget that there may be a connection between the decline in pub going and the rise in male suicide. People used to visit pubs for a smoke and a drink or a chat with friends. That's declined. And so people are buying cheap drink and drinking at home. Some people are feeling isolated as a direct consequence. The rise in online groups may be an antidote to a small degree. Alan, what do you think?
Right. I can't verify the facts that that's the case, but I can understand the methodology behind it. Let me give you an example of that, and one that was personal to me and a friend of mine, and somebody you know, Neil. I'm not going to mention the name.
No, of course.
But this person was giving me some physical training, you know, PT stuff anyway. He's a sportsman and spend a lot of time working away from home. And he just said to me one day, quite coyly, he said, Alan, look, you're in the mind profession. I think I'm going a bit mad. And I was, talk to me, what's the problem? And then he was explaining about how he emotionally felt when he was at home with his wife and children, and then the tear away when he was away, yeah, particularly in sports season, spending a lot of time working away from home, and all those emotional and feelings that he went through. So we had a chat for a while without going into details, and I said to him, "You and millions of other guys been through that myself. Yeah, I've worked away from home lots of times, weekends, you know what I mean, week here, week there at a time,
Yeah.
being away. I go through that emotion of family life, to being torn away from it, to the work life, which is detached from it, and it does generate.
And you use the term torn away, and it can feel like that if you're very, very
Yeah,
close to that kind of life.
absolutely.
And it leads me on beautifully to the next question: is what needs do men have that are not being fulfilled, and maybe the men even don't know they have these as needs because we've shoved it down for so long and put the mask on, we don't know ourselves anymore. So what needs need addressing here? What needs do we have as guys that need fulfilling, do you think?
Well, let's go back to that and say, just talk. What you don't realise is when you're working away and feel like you're in isolation, and a lot of guys do work away from home for very different times, is your mates are probably feeling the same and you're not talking to each other about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not
But it's the first one to break the ice.
Yeah. And
what is the fear of breaking the ice? Are they going to be seen as weak, or have the piss taken out of them, or they fear they will?
I think some of those old stereotypes, Neil, particularly that. And I think
they don't serve us, do they?
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to where we are now and why I think there's an increase, or we're certainly seeing an increase in it, is because men are feeling they have to cope with the pressures on us at the moment, the additional costs, the crises that we're going through, and they have to take all of that extra burden and responsibility for the family. And that's what we call a natural macho sort of male instinct to do. When we talk about humanistic, so I'm not going to get into a sexist talk about saying that women's roles aren't different than men or get involved in that. This is what we call the humanistic side of it. Yeah, the humanistic side of us, and that's a very good part to understand, is that men have that feeling that they have to take responsibility. And when you're trying to deal with a large number of issues at the same time, focus now about the future. Yeah, we're all confused about the future. Yeah, being coronavirus, the current situation, there's the financial situation where a lot of people are struggling. Yeah, plus some of their other own personal issues, going back to what I was saying about the gentleman with the loss of his sister, about with the physical issues, and they're feeling they have to keep all of this on board in their own heads. Rather than just say, I'm not feeling good today, yet my head's in a different place. That's all it takes sometimes to break that ice.
Just to break the ice, just to be willing to talk it out. I mean, I've discovered the beauty of that in the last couple of years with some very close friends, and it really just gave me permission to feel what I felt. It's allowed, as my friend likes to say, and permission to be human. And it feels like such a relief, even if you don't get an immediate solution, but you're not the only one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. This is men, and I'll give you this example. This isn't quite on mental health, but it absolutely is. I remember a few years ago, and it was a plumbing job, and there was a gentleman, a guy I used to know, and we used to pop down, to the sort of cafe for a cup of coffee, do you know what I mean, on the site of this place I was doing a contract on. And I just said to him, "You look a bit miserable today." He said, "Been like that all week." And he said, "Oh, yeah," he says, "I've got a leak in the attic from the water tank." I said, "I don't want to do it. It's going to cost me a fortune to do." And I said, "We'll turn the stopcock off." And he went, "Oh, that's jammed on." And I said, "No problem." I said, "I had a similar situation not a while back. Plumber will come and do that quite quickly. A jammed stopcock, main stopcock." And he said, "Well, how? It's going to cost me a fortune to do that, and I haven't got the money for that at the moment." I said, No, it cost me 50 quid to have a new stopcock fitted. Mains one coming into the house. The plumber just come and froze the pipe with some kit he had to freeze the pipe because ice doesn't come out. He can take the tap off, do the plumbing, 20 quid for a new, done and dusted in 20 minutes. Anyway, got a coffee. I saw him the following day, and he was happy, and he went, "Oh, that's, you're happy today. Well, what, did you sort your plumbing out?" And he went, "No, but it's in my head. It's fixed. I'm not going to worry about that now. I know how to do it. Yep. You've told me how to do it. It's fixed." So I'm not that worried about it now. I know I can fix it quite cheaply at any time. Yeah. So just knowledge, of something could be fixed was enough to take that stress away from him. And being a typical guy, now I know how to do it. I'll fix it later. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's just it's
an example of it. Yeah.
I think it does.
It does. To me, it's compartmentalizing, isn't it?
Yeah. I've got a problem.
Putting it on the back burner.
Yeah. Being a bloke, you're a bloke. Yeah. Now, if I know how to fix something, well, I can. Yeah, I know how to do it now, so that's all right. Yeah. Problem, as he put it, problem solved. I know how to fix it. Yeah.
Now, this is very important. There's a theme emerging here. So
there is.
I'm going to read them out. Both things. This is from Leslie Demeser. Most of the young people I work with, therapeutically, not English tuition, who express their anxiety and stress issues to me, say that they don't feel able to tell their parents about it. The reason often being that they don't want to put any extra pressure or burden on their parents, because their parents have more than enough to worry about. And she adds, and then I want to go back to another thing here. This is so sad. I try to explain that parents have broad shoulders and will be able to cope. Totally so.
Yeah. But any decent parent would want to hear from their children.
We've got, and if I could get up there,
surely,
which I can't, I'm trying to get to Ramsey's. No, it's deciding not to work. Anyway, so there we go. Right, there we go.
Is it the one about stoicism?
No. It's the one. Here we go. This is it. Sorry about that.
Speaking as an older man, I find it's the younger generation that's suffering from anxiety and stress, millennials and Gen Zs. They're anxious about their place in the world, the direction of politics and the future of world affairs, their financial future and job prospects, the lack of social mobility and opportunities to buy their own home and raise a family. They carry a heavy burden and cannot see a positive future in many cases.
Amen to that.
Absolutely.
Amen to that.
Yeah, we are seeing a lot more. Specifically around, and again, boys as well as girls, around the teenage years. Yeah, that seems to be increasing very much at the moment. I'm not understanding why that is, whether that's just something local.
Well, I was angsty enough in my teenage years. I can imagine growing up in these times with social media and bad news going around the world in 0.2 nanoseconds. It's no worry people are scared.
Let's dice that up a little bit. Why?
I don't think
here's my view, Alan. Alan, here's my view on why that's happening, because you just said you didn't understand why. Well, let me answer. Let me answer, Alan. You posed the question. Let me come back with a potential answer. Girls are under enormous pressure, unless they're really smart, from social media. We talk about it time and time again. Back in the day, you'd be bullied at school. It would end at the school gates. You'd go home, have a jam sandwich, get on with the rest of your day. You can't do that now with social media. It is endless. The bullying
is right here.
The bullying on social media is absolutely appalling, and many, many girls are bullied beyond belief. Also, they're given horrendous body image advice from all this crap on TikTok and everything else. Guys are not quite so drawn into that. So if you think that's sexist, it's just how the stats work.
No, I agree with that.
It's how the stats work out. I was apologizing to the audience. So that's one of the reasons. The boys take a more stoic view that they don't want to be a nuisance to their parents, who they can see are stressed and under financial burdens and all sorts of stuff. That's why.
But I think absolutely right there, Russ, you are. But also one that I'd noticed, and again, whether it's a recent thing, and I'm not putting any of this down on to schools. I had a client, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, and he was pretty switched on in the sense that he knew what he wanted to do with his life career-wise, but he didn't understand how to achieve it. And when I spoke to him, and as I said, he was pretty incensed on what he wanted to do. He had no idea of what qualifications got him into. Yep. He was under pressure to study all the different areas at school. He was under pressure to achieve this, to achieve that. And I asked him a simple question. What is it you actually need in qualifications and skills to actually go the next level up to get into college or university with that career choice. Yep. And he didn't know.
Oh.
We sat down at a computer and worked it out for him. So how many, A levels he needed at which particular subjects. And he went, well, I'm good at
Why
that.
wasn't the school doing this?
That was my question.
Why aren't there? Where's the
helping him?
career? Where's the careers master,
Exactly.
or the careers teacher, or careers mistress, or whatever they're called? What are they doing?
Exactly. His frustration was,
They're going
I
on
know
a
what I want
diversity
with my
course
life.
or some shit.
Yeah. I know what I want with my life, but nobody's helping me or telling me.
Well, that's a disgraceful dereliction of duty on behalf of the school.
Absolutely. And an absolute change in him. Once we'd gone online, we talked to him. He'd gone through some issues. I actually went on and we pulled it up online. These are the qualifications you need. This is what you need. These are the places that are open. Complete change of guy. Yeah.
Of course.
Anxiety's gone.
And well done you.
Yes, but clearly you're
Well
a very
done
good
you.
therapist, you and Kate. And here's the thing, and this is what I've gleaned from the two examples you've given. Once people felt safe to talk, open up, have space for their feelings, and then be offered a potential solution, even if the solution hadn't actually come true yet, it's still a relief for them. Perhaps relief is the key. And I guess the opposite of relief is bottling things up until, like the first chap you talked about, eventually it explodes and something happens out of character, which it turned out was a blessing because he's now receiving the help he needs.
Yeah,
but it shouldn't have to go that far. So how can we, what else could you suggest that it doesn't have to go that far? It doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be collapsed on the kitchen floor before you think, oh, there might be a problem here.
Yeah. The guys have just got to start opening up, start talking to your workmates a bit more. Just say how you feel. Yeah. I'm not saying necessarily go overboard. Yeah. We're not talking about women, talk about everything. But going back to what I was saying, particularly a lot of guys work away. Your mates are probably feeling as you are, but you're all bottling it up independently. Yeah. You're all not talking about it. If you're working away on a roadside somewhere or with a team or whatever it is you do for a living that takes you away from home, don't just sit there and absorb those feelings that you're missing the family and those torn feelings you've got and those pent up emotions, because you're all doing the same. Yeah. Just talk about it. Even if it's over a beer or something, talk about those feelings, which then may go back to what we were saying, the person that wrote in about because of the pubs and the social side of it, the suicides. Yeah. All right. That sort of makes sense with that. It is. You've got to be.
Well, I would lump in the closure of pubs. I'm not a big pub person, but the closure of pubs just adds to the isolation, and the isolation was propelled by the wretched pandemic, which is what depends if you wear a tinfoil hat or not. Some people would say that's what they wanted because they've got you from being a society into an individual, and you're much more malleable if you're an individual, and you're nervous and you're scared permanently and you don't know what's going on permanently, etc., etc., etc. I think that's true. But it's if people can be sociable, and also I think with the work thing that you were saying, Alan, you don't have to go in, full-blown Californian, show your innermost soul in 30 seconds of meeting somebody, because that's just nonsense. And very American. But what you can do is just test the water.
Yeah.
And if the guy turns around and says, I love being away, I can't stand my missus, and I've got this girl up the road now, and you think, well, this is not the person I'm going to chat to. But know pretty soon, if the guy says, I don't really like it either, you'll have an empathy. And
Exactly.
It's just putting your toe in the water, dipping your toe in the water, and just see. What's the worst?
And most decent people won't mock you, and most decent people won't take the piss. Well, they just won't.
Don't you think that most men, if somebody said, you know what, I really miss my wife and family, most men would go, you're so lucky to have that.
Yeah.
How lucky you are that you're in a place in your life where you've got clearly a wonderful partner and great kids, and you're missing them. It's a great thing. Yeah, it hurts you, but it shows that you got something going on in your life, as opposed to, well, I'm on the road 5 days a week and I don't really care. It's not much of a life, is it?
There's another point, and on that post, Neil, there's Alexandra, yeah. And she said it's okay to meet her. She's a woman in London who now is having to deal with the fallout of her husband's mental health issues. And this is why it's very important, again, to be proactive in dealing
To
things
catch it early,
because her situation is, because of the NHS and all the backlogs and all the other issues related to that. And that's no disrespect to the NHS. I love it. Yeah. But because of all those backlogs, she's unable to get him the right help at the right time. Left it too late. He's now in a catatonic state where he needs serious help after a breakdown to actually get support. And of course, that medical help, because of the hospital backlogs, isn't there for her. That's why I got involved with that one on LinkedIn, Neil, on that post.
Yeah,
and
we
I
were
think,
talking about
Alan,
that one earlier, weren't we?
Can I say something, Alan? I think we have to stop. I don't mean you. I think we, as a country, and as broadcasters, have to stop dancing around this. The fact of the matter is, the NHS is not fit for purpose, and you're not allowed to say that, but it's not.
Nothing to do with the individuals in there.
We cling on to the fact that it's okay.
Yeah.
It hasn't been okay for years. There's not enough money in the damn world to fix it. It just isn't. So when it comes to mental health is at the bottom of the pile. At the top of the pile, you have a heart attack, NHS will sort you out. Break your arm, my finger in my case, NHS will sort you out. You got mental problems, you are screwed.
Right, I'm going to put a fact here. Yeah.
Go on.
And something that you'll know about when we had the charity days at Changes. Did you know that the NHS was never mandate for mental health? Going back to its onset, it was never mandate for mental health.
Because mental health wasn't even considered important then,
it was institutionalisation. That was the issue they brought in. And the government, when they brought in the national health, there's a couple of areas of of health that aren't fully included, mental health being one of them. The reason being is no country could run a system that's going to deal with everybody's mental health. And when we talk about that, we talk about addictions, grief. Nobody can, have a system every time you have a relationship break up or you lose your job that you can run to a counsellor or therapy for. It's unaffordable. And we had pretty much the same changes later on in dentistry. It's unaffordable to run a system on it. However,
the truth of the matter is, NHS was founded by Nair and Bevan, 1949. As a thank you to a generation that had given everything in World War II when they were recovering from World War One. I worked for the Department of Health for a year as a consultant, and in my research, I keep saying this because people don't want to hear this fact. So it was founded in 1949. By 1951, the Labour government, and it was a wonderful idea, realised they couldn't afford it. They knew it was unaffordable by 1951. That's 3 years after they started it. And basically, because it's enshrined in the DNA of the United Kingdom, they're lumbered with it. It's a wonderful idea.
It's a big problem, but we need a solution, and we need a solution pretty bloody quickly. But I do remember, actually, I probably told you this story before, when we had Alan's partner on, Kate and Alan funded, started up Changes charity, Changes with a Z at the end, Changes, and it was basically a converted garden shed in their back garden. I just qualified in NLP, and I was doing NLP prac there, and it was run by Kate and Alan and a team of volunteers, and it was a wonderful idea. But part of the reason why Kate set that up is because it was at least 6 months waiting before for just an acute mental health issue, a phobia or something like that, or anxiety. 6 to 18 months. You were lucky if it was 6 months, and Kate wanted to do something about that. But there's got to be more done, even if it's a whole new model, starting in at a grassroots level, because whatever the cause is, the effect is really bad. And
too late. It's too late, Neil. No one's going to grasp that nettle. No government of any colour, of any persuasion, of any political view is ever going to grasp that nettle. Because I think it's too difficult.
To be honest, one of the things that I'm going to add this one in. I know now, and maybe you do, Russ. The whole political and let's just say financial aspect of mental health, it's used as a tool. Yep. It creates politics. It creates financial gain for some
Not
people.
with you.
Yep.
Not entirely with you.
Right.
Expand it.
Well, when I say, we talk about mental health, right?
Mm.
Again, let's talk about mental health. There's two aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
What we call, and I'm very, very, very clear, mental health and emotional health. One's,
Okay.
let's talk about Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, their mental health problems. Let's talk about fears, phobias, addictions, anxieties, and natural human emotion. It's high levels of anxiety or problems.
Mm-hmm.
They are emotional health problems. Mental health only affects 9% of people. Yep, let's say that between 7 to 9%. That's as in the world actually have a mental health problem. 80% of people will have an emotional health problem at some point in their lives, whether that's anxiety, whether that's stress, whether that's
and it's banded together under one statistic, isn't it? They say
because
1 in
of
4 people would
politics.
experience.
Politics and
being
money
both,
do
doesn't
that.
it?
Yeah.
Where would just for some clarity, because we cover it a lot, where would depression fit in your
The
percentile?
emotional side.
Depression, there's a mix between the two. Yeah, there are one or two grey areas. We put depression in that. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, but because of one or two issues, you can't quantify stress that's caused because of work pressures, financial pressures, in the same category as you would put somebody who's clinically depressed or somebody with schizophrenia. And that's what they try to do. Yeah. And what we need now is education, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Sure.
A lot
No,
of
of course it does.
Mhm.
Of course it does. Yeah. Education.
Something I have noticed, Alan, and this is with the younger generation, talking to them. They're really good to talk to, some of the 20-somethings, and I find them very interesting. And I've got a daughter in that age group too, and it's a real insight how they experience life. And I can sort of share what I went through 20 years, what it was like in my time. So it's an interesting conversation if you get into that headspace. And they talk about mental health in a different way. When I was sort of growing up that age, I thought if you got mentally ill, it was just almost like the bad luck of the draw. You got cancer, it was a genetic thing, maybe your mental health, maybe it's a genetic thing, and there was nothing. The point is there was nothing you could do about it, right? Now I hear them talking about it more in terms of my mental health, implying that they're inferring that there is some agency on their part, if that makes sense. That it's a sort of self-responsibility. So when you say education, are we, and I agree with you fully, is it a question of teaching people tools to master themselves?
I think it's a combination of both now. I think one is people, at the top, government politics, have got to come out and going back to what Russ was saying, the unaffordability. As well as I do in this country, it is pretty much like dentistry. If you've got issues on the lower level, increased levels of anxiety, an addiction, a phobia, some work stress and other related stresses, you come and see somebody like me, but it's going to cost you money because nobody else funds it. Government doesn't fund it. If you've got health insurance, they might cover it. Employer might cover it. And that's the biggest percentage of people. So we've got to stop this link between what we call mental health and emotional health, and you've got to come clean. Because the amount of clients I get who don't understand, if that makes any sense, they think the NHS will fix them because they need counselling. They'll go to their GP. The only thing a GP is going to do is put you on anxiety pills and then tell you to come and see somebody like me if you can afford it, or put you on this long waiting list.
And that's another perception you've touched on there, that doctors are somehow miracle workers and can fix you. Yes, they're brilliant, but there is an element of self-responsibility, isn't there? They can fit the new leg, but you have to do the exercises to break it in.
I get questions asked me, and another one that comes up quite common. Somebody will ring up and they think they need counselling, whether it's their anger issues or their stress, and I'll say, "Oh, well, can I come and see you, or do I need to see the doctor first?" Well, you don't need to see a doctor. You just come in and see me. Otherwise, you're going to go through that process of going to your doctor, put on an NHS waiting list, and then just told you can go to private. Yeah.
The thing is, if somebody says I've got prostate problems, can I
Mm.
come and see you, Alan? You go, no,
Yeah.
obviously not. You go and see the doctor. Someone
Yeah.
says, you say I fell over in the street and I've broken my arm. Can I come and see you, Alan? No. You
Mm.
go to the hospital. You go and see. That's
Yeah.
they can deal with that.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're
okay.
obviously a pioneer for great
Yeah.
mental health. What changes would you like to see? What are you doing differently in your practice what are you doing that other
Very
people maybe
kind,
should be
Kimmy,
doing
by the
more
way.
of?
Thank you.
I'm just to say it as it is, therapist. Yeah. I think that's the best way to be. Yeah. Yeah. I think on that, it is, we don't like to preach or to educate people, but at the same point, in that terms of how the system works, but we clearly point out how the system works. Yeah. What they don't realise, if I feel there's something more wrong with you, that you need to see a GP or be put in the system, I can sit here and write a letter or contact your GP for you. Yeah.
Yes.
That way, you're shortcutting your way and getting the proper help first. If you've got a mental health problem, or you're feeling out of sorts mentally or emotionally, go and see a counsellor or psychotherapist. Yes, it may cost you. It's like going to the dentist to pay for whatever checkup or whatever treatment you need. Yeah. And then if that therapist believes there's something more that needs to be looked into, he will contact your GP and he will get you quicker and on the system better than you go to the GP. Put on anxiety pills.
Because they say about cancer, don't they? They say if you catch it early, it's more treatable. But I would apply that to mental issues as well, like the first chap you talked about.
Yeah.
If he'd have had an opportunity and believed it was all right to process his emotions as he went along, it wouldn't have come to crisis point. We don't want any more crisis points.
There's so many huge subjects that I was so keen with Howard to create Men's Radio Station that's come up in this conversation with you, Alan Piper. What a bloody marvelous guest you are. One is these things are time sensitive. So God forbid you have blood when you go to the toilet, when you're doing a poo, get hold of the doctor. Because, and I'm the worst with this. I put my hands up, it'll go away. It'll be fine. Well, most of the time, maybe it will. It quite possibly will. But I mean, this is a side adjunct. Guys, go to the doctor for Christ's sake. Just the moment you tell the therapist, I've got blood when I shouldn't be having blood, they will see you. And they won't say, come and see me in 5 weeks' time. They'll say, come in.
No.
They won't muck about. They don't muck about with stuff like that. The whole nature. I'm so sorry. Hang on. The whole nature about suicide prevention, which is you're not going to cure it, but you want to prevent it. And by preventing it is if you think somebody is in trouble, even if vaguely, Neil has already touched on it beautifully. And you say to somebody, are you all right? And they go, yeah. Fine. And then you just say, no. Are you really all right? You're opening up the door. You're letting them know it's not just, did you see the game on Saturday when Spurs won 28-0 against Arsenal? You're saying, I'm caring. I may not be the right person, but at least we can start the conversation.
I call it checking in on someone.
Checking
I
in.
do it with my daughter, I do it with my friends. I just check in and say, sorry, don't want to sound like an annoying bloke, but all right, and just checking in. And if they say yes, then I'll leave it alone. I'm not going to be like a dog with a bone with it. Oh, Dave, I like this. It's easier to support someone before a crisis than to grieve them after the crisis. Yeah, beautifully stated. There was a comment from Ramsey that I wanted to put up quickly, if I may.
Which was, which one was it? The MHS?
One moment. No, I shall find it. It's...
By the way, while you're doing that,
no, just back to
thank
what we
you
were
very
talking
much,
about earlier.
Kimmy. Sorry, Leslie, so true. Yeah.
My son was the same. He's so caring. This is about children not wanting to burden their parents with their problems. And he didn't want to offload his feelings. Kids don't realise that for parents, their children's well-being tops any other issues they may be having. And that's how I feel about my daughter. I would insist that she came to me, and I'd be gutted if she didn't for any reason.
Another thing I really do want to say, and I've said it before, and I will bang this drum forever, is this. Over the years we've been doing Men's Radio Station and The Daily Show, we've had people in, guests, who have attempted to end their own lives and mercifully have failed. Well, let me just say, haven't succeeded. Yeah? All of them, without exception, were relieved that their attempt failed. And the moment they started whatever method they were going to use. I'm trying to be careful here. Whatever method they were going to use, the moment they started it, without exception, they realized they'd made a mistake. Not one of them said, "Oh, damn, I can't believe I didn't."
It's a
No,
permanent
they all
solution to
realized
temporary problems.
they'd made a mistake. And the other thing was, and this is so important, and if I get nothing else across this year, this would be my point, is this, that all of the people who had failed in their attempts to end their own lives, thought that their families and friends, specifically their families, would be better off without them, and it would be a relief to their families and friends.
And that is classic
And
depression.
When they were in recovery, and the family said, "For God's sake, why didn't you tell me?" And all the families said, "Do you understand how much we'd have missed you, how much we love you? If you'd have reached out, we would have done anything within our power to help you. So please." This show goes out all
and I
over
think
the
it's
world.
worth touching on again, though, we discussed this in our pre-call earlier, Alan, that when you are experiencing anything mental health related, when one is, and I mean you personally, when one is, it feels so isolating. It feels like you're the only one in the world. And if you look at Facebook, everyone's having a wonderful time in life apart from you, and that's where social media doesn't
crap.
and it is crap. But so the first step, just talking, at least you realize you're not the only one. And in a non-judgmental forum, and I've experienced this, sometimes things that are close to magic happen. I've seen it. There's calls I attend online, and I see people have breakthroughs. You literally see the light come on, and you must see that in your work as well. And
absolutely.
How fulfilling that is when it's like, and you honestly, after sometimes people can look 10 years younger after half an hour, and I'm not kidding. It's like all the stress falls away, and for you and people like you and your lovely partner Kate to be able to facilitate that, I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, what got me into this profession was my own experience. And I'll be absolutely honest. First career, I was in design engineering. I did a career change part of the way through life. I was traveling over the world. I was doing all sorts of issues. Tell me a little bit about my history. I grew up in the Middle East in a war zone as a child. My father was in the RAF, so I've experienced that. I came to the UK, or we came back to settle in the UK. I did some motorcycle racing when I was younger. I had a near-death experience and had to be brought back to life. As I'd gone through life, I was taught I was a cool, laid out, just easygoing chap. With the traveling I was doing, I'd been involved in a plane crash at an airport coming down without his front wheel. I'd been at a hijacking incident. I was married, 2 children. I was
Christ, I'm never flying with you.
We can go on. And then one day I was driving to an office and I suddenly had a panic attack. I had no idea what a panic attack was. I had no idea how I was feeling. I was just mentally and emotionally all over the place. I booked a doctor's appointment at the sort of request of my wife at that time, to go and see somebody. I was fortunate enough that I could go and see my GP, and he just said, "What you've been through, I'll put you in contact," and he put me in contact with a private counsellor. It was a private counsellor.
And
I talked about those issues, and she just turned around and said to me, "What you've been through, Alan, in your life, I'm not surprised." However,
huge.
And you've just boosted the point, because you didn't back then realise. You just thought it was just normal life. You didn't know there were tools to process it. You thought it was just normal. Suck it up, buttercup, and everything will be all right. Listen, we're almost running out of time. I want to put this on the screen quickly. wiseblueowl.co.uk. That is your therapy centre.
Yeah, that's correct.
You and your wonderful partner, Kate Hudson Hall, who has also been on the show and is an author of Bulimia Sucks with the Bulimia Sucks podcast, and the recent book Anxiety Hacks, which are available on Amazon. So it's a real therapy hub where you are. And I wanted to give Kate a shout because she's lovely as well. Alan, don't you think, Russ, what an important guest?
Sensational guest, an important guest. And Alan, whether you knew it or not, you went to the very heart of what men's radio station and indeed women's radio station is all about, and why we are so determined when we get fantastic comments that we do throughout the show, determined to not just be here, not just stay here, but to grow this into something way bigger than it is now. That's the dream. That's the goal. So we can help as many people as humanly possible. Neil and I will be back on Wednesday. Alan, you are welcome back anytime.
Anytime,
No problem.
please.
Anytime.
If guys want to go online and support that LinkedIn campaign, feel free to do it.
I'll find it.
Just look up Alan Piper on LinkedIn, right?
Or Neil or Russ, I think you're connected on it somewhere. I'll find it. Yep.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Alan. All